who is a human rights advocate and founder and president of One Free World International, a human rights organization advocating for religious minorities globally. His human rights journey started in his native Egypt, and that was when he from which he was later forced to flee. Reverend El Shafie was severely tortured and sentenced to death for his conversion to Christianity, and he's been bringing the awareness of human rights violations related to religious persecution. So I will ask Reverend Shafie to enlighten us on this dimension of both incitement and human rights.
Today in our world, there is around 200 to 300 million persecuted Christians worldwide, especially in the Muslim countries, some of them in the communist countries such as China, North Korea, Cuba, and so on. Just last year, over 165,000 Christians was killed for their faith. I used to be one of them. I was arrested back home in Egypt. I was tortured severely in the Egyptian prison. Until now, I still have my scars on my back. Until now, I still have my nightmares in the night. And this led me to basically escape from death penalty in Egypt, stole jet ski and I crossed the border from Taba to Eilat. That's a true story. And through Amnesty International and United Nations, I was located in Canada, where I started One Free World International for Human Rights. The human rights organization was built basically to defend the religious freedom, the freedom of religion, the minority rights around the world, not just of the Christians but elsewhere, and not just the Christians, other minorities, and standing against anti-Semitism. Today, if we are just overview about what's happening around us, not just in Israel or Iran, but overview about what's going on around us, you found in Pakistan, for example, I have the privilege of taking a Canadian member of parliament, traveling all the way to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq. I get shot at 7 times in the last 5 years, and I'm still standing. Really nothing happened to me. I don't think that they aim properly. Anyways, basically, in Pakistan, for example, there's something called blasphemy law, the 295C, 295B, where you cannot even debate the idea of Islam or the Prophet Muhammad. You cannot even discuss it. You cannot even put it in a discussion. And this law been used but in just in personal disputes, to use as a threat against the minority, which is the Ahmadiyyas, the Muslim Ahmadiyyas, and the Christians in Pakistan. There is slave camps in Pakistan, as well in Afghanistan, where the persecution that's happening to the woman, to the minority there, the Christian minority, to the Hazaras, which is the Muslim Shias. In Afghanistan today, this is the country that Canadian troops and American troops went to fight for the government there. In Afghanistan today, there is a law that if a woman refuses to sleep with her husband every 4 days, he have the right to starve her to death. That's not a joke. This is true. This is the law. This is the reality in Afghanistan. And she have no rights to leave the house without permission from her husband. And if she did not sleep with him every 4 days, he have the right to starve her to death, to give her the necessities of life, such as food and water. This is a law. This is not just a theory. In country like Egypt, and let's talk a little bit about what's so-called the Arab Spring, if I may say. How many of you hear this expression, Arab Spring? Put your hands up. I just want to see your hands. I don't know who called it Arab Spring. I bet you anything, he was a guy wearing his suit, sitting behind his desk, doesn't even know where is the Middle East on the map. Do you want to bet? When you have a dictatorship, which we are all against it, like Mubarak dictatorship, like Assad dictatorship, Gaddafi dictatorship, Ali Abdullah Saleh dictatorship in Yemen, all of this dictatorship, of course you want to take this dictatorship out, absolutely. We are all against dictatorship, period. But the problem, what the West doesn't know, and they keep calling it Arab Spring, that when you take dictatorship out, you create a political vacuum. Well, who is using this political vacuum? Is the Muslim extremists, because they are the most organized group after most likely the army. But you cannot have democracy in the Middle East between day and night. You can't. It's as simple as that. Let's talk about Egypt as a country, for example. You have 30 to 40% of the Egyptians is illiterate. They don't know how to write and read their own name. So even if you reform the constitution, even if you have free election, which they don't, by the way, the people don't know what they are voting about. And here comes the guy with a religion and say, hey, just follow me so God will bless you. Of course he will vote for him because he doesn't know any better. He's uneducated. Education have to come before democracy. Without education, democracy dies. Education is the oxygen of democracy. And here is the question. Now, we are not saying that like all the Muslims is bad or anything like that. We are talking just about the extremists. Here is the question. The moderate Muslims, they say, well, the extremist is hijacked our religion. The extremists hijacked our religion. And here's my question to you. Why did you let them? I am a Christian. If I went to the church and I found a pastor or priest, saying something that I disagree with it, I will be the first one who will grab him out. This is how we solve the problems in the Egyptian way. We grab people out. I'm joking. But the truth and the reality, why did you let them? The biggest dilemma that facing Islam as a religion today is not the rising of the extremists, but is the silence of the moderate Muslims. This is the biggest dilemma that facing Islam as a belief today. What we don't know, that the outcome of all of this information, the Arab Spring turning to be a cold, deadly winter on the minorities. And not just the minorities, but also in Israel. The truth and the reality, democracy have two foundations. You cannot have democracy in the Middle East without two main foundations. Number one, freedom of religion. The freedom to believe or not to believe in anything. I don't mind people that they come and they tell me we don't believe in anything. That's fine. That's between you and God, man. I don't care. I don't care. I will share with you a funny story. I was one day in a conference, and this man came to me and he was trying to be a partner, like he wanted to have a partnership with me in the same conference. And I tell him, I really don't know you. We are willing to come and attend. And he told me, we are a group of people that we believe that God is a woman. I was like, that's fine with me. Like, if that's what you believe, that's fine. But he started to push me, and he started like, no, I want you to also to believe that God is a woman. I was like, why? You are free to attend the conference. You are free to worship as you wish. But I don't have to believe in what you believe. But the guy was very persistent. He told me, why you don't believe that God is a woman? I told him, well, there is two reasons. Number one, I believe that God is a holy being. He is not male or female. I don't believe that God is a man or a woman. This is number one. I told him, number two, if God is a woman, all men will go to hell and will never know why. The one who laughed, you know that I'm right. The one who didn't laugh, you are scared of your girlfriend. But the freedom is to believe or not to believe in anything you want. This is number one foundation of democracy in the Middle East, freedom of religion. Number two, democracy the second foundation of democracy in the Middle East will be the separation between the religion and the state. You have to separate between the religion and the state. And the Arab Spring will not only be dangerous on the Christians or the Baha'is or the Ahmadiyyas, the other minorities, it also will be dangerous on Israel. Because now, across the border from you, you have the Muslim Brotherhood sitting down, waiting for and you saw just recently, since Muslim Brotherhood took over, there is many attacks took place in Sinai, on the border with Israel. This will lead us to the increase of the anti-Semitism that we see today. Now, the anti-Semitism there is a new kind of anti-Semitism. You need to understand this. Anti-Semitism is developing. The old anti-Semitism is what? Oh, Jewish is bad, kill them. No, in the restaurants, they used to have signs: no dogs and no Jews allowed. That's in Canada, used in the old days. This is the old anti-Semitism. What is the new anti-Semitism? The new anti-Semitism is wearing masks now. What is the new anti-Semitism? The new anti-Semitism is you take Jewish out and you put Israel in. So you have the same speech, the same exact speech. You listen to Hitler's speech. Take the same speech and take Jewish out and put Israel in. And this is the new anti-Semitism because it's more politically correctness. It's more politically correct. You can attack Israel as a state. Listen, I'm not saying you cannot attack Israel as a state. Of course you can. Of course you can criticize Israel. Israel is a country like any country in the world. Have its own good, have its own bad. In the matter of fact, the most people that criticize Israel is the Israelis themselves. Of course you can criticize Israel as you wish. It's a country like any country. However, there is two things: you cannot touch it, or it's anti-Semitism. The Israeli right to exist, Israel right to exist, and Israel right to defend itself. This is the 2 points that you cannot touch when you're criticizing Israel, or it will be an anti-Semitism. Finally, after we know all of this, what is the solution? We get to know the problems. Sorry for making it dark for you a little bit, but what's the solution? The solution that we stand together. The solution that we fight for each other. The minute that we realize that we complete each other, the minute that we understand that Christians and Jews stand beside each other, and beside the Ahmadiyyas, beside the Baha'is, beside the Uyghurs, the Falun Gong, the Hazaras, whoever they are, whatever their name, when we stand together, when we defend each other, then we will make a difference. When we understand that we can put pressure on our countries to make the international trade and the aid related to the improvement of the human rights record on these countries, then we will make a difference. The truth and the reality, our world is unfair place, is unjust place. Not because the people is doing evil, but because the people who remain silent about it. In the absence of light, darkness prevails. This is the truth. In the absence of light, darkness prevails. The history will not remember, believe me when I tell you, the history will not remember the words of our enemy, but the history will remember the silence of our friends. That's what the history will remember. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, the persecuted people of faith is dying, but I believe that they're still smiling. They are in very deep, dark night, but they still have the candle of the living God. Our enemy have very strong army, it's true. Our enemy have very strong weapons, it's true. But we have the Lord Almighty, and this is a fact, and that's my belief. Believe me when I tell you, after every night there is new morning carrying new day. After every storm there is sunshine. And after every persecution there is victory. Believe me when I tell you, they can kill the dreamer, but no one can kill the dream. Thank you and God bless. Thank you.